My name is James Huey, and the title of my speech is Reform or Replace. Is the Electoral College failing modern America? Did you know that it only takes 12 states to achieve the 270 electoral votes to elect a president? If you've been watching the news lately, it should be clear that the Electoral College is fundamentally flawed. It scales poorly to populations as large as modern-day America. Faithless electors, winners who lose the popular vote, and legislative ambiguity create a system with the potential for abuse and disenfranchisement of voters. Our country was founded on the concept of self-governance and the belief that individual votes, as well as the will of the majority, would guide the future of our country. The founders created this more perfect union that worked well for their time, but has since exposed serious flaws as the country grew, and politics skewed well beyond what most of the forefathers could have envisioned. Our votes mean less when systems like the Electoral College put the election of the president in the hands of a small number of people who are expected by agreement to vote according to the people's will, but can choose not to do so. In this speech, I'd like to discuss what is not working in the Electoral College, what systems are still of benefit to modern-day America, and have a discussion about if we should reform or replace the Electoral College. Those against the Electoral College believe it has many serious flaws. Electors are assigned to the states based on representation in Congress, 2 for each senator and 1 for each representative in the House. The first flaw is that 12 states could theoretically elect a president by themselves. While statistically a majority of the population, it would disenfranchise the other 38 states, making their votes meaningless. For example, in the first 12 presidential elections, Virginia's population gave them 25 of the total electors, and a Virginian was elected 11 out of 12 times, according to Roos in 2020. On a related note, a candidate can win a majority of the votes, but still lose the election, as illustrated in the current slide, compiled by O'Neill in 2020. Second, faithless electors are becoming more prevalent. According to Electoral College Fast Facts, while there have only been 21 in history and have never affected the outcome of an election, 13 of them were in the 2016 election alone, which is a worrisome trend. Lastly, one of James Madison's fears, which he, under the pen name of Publius, documented in the Federalist Papers number 10 in 1787, was the threat of political parties polarizing, creating a divide that could not be traversed. For example, during the ratification of the Constitution, the Federalists and Anti-Federalists clashed over if the Constitution should be ratified, a telling and prophetic example of the threat partisan politics could pose. While the issues are significant, the Electoral College does have some redeeming qualities as well. These strengths are both measures intended to prevent the people from directly electing a president who the electors felt was not in the best interest of the country. As stated before, electors are assigned based on total representation in Congress, a form of proportional representation, giving states with larger populations more influence. The idea was, per Electoral College Fast Facts, to make the vote just democratic enough to be fair, while creating a buffer intended to prevent tyranny of the masses. One of the more disputed yet important powers is that electors can choose to vote in the best interests of the country if they believe the winner of the popular vote is a threat to the security or safety of the country. Alexander Hamilton, also under the shared pen name of Publius in 1787, stated this provision was also to protect elections from foreign intrigue and executive influence, which are both issues in the news currently. Despite these strengths, the Electoral College is failing to adequately perform the function it was created for, defending the integrity of electing a president. I firmly believe the flaws in the Electoral College warrant reform. We need to advocate for strong, sensible changes to protect the integrity of and restore faith in our elections. My first suggestion is that the impact of partisan politics must be protected against if we wish to prevent elections such as the one currently in process. Ezra Klein, in his book Why We're Polarized from 2020, explains that polarization is natural and rational because we want to categorize things to make them simpler. We want to know who belongs to what. However, this creates a feedback loop. which simply further polarizes groups, resulting in our current partisan conflict. In other words, it's likely to get worse if we do not do something about it. Next, I would change how electoral votes are allocated to better reflect the will of the voters. Allocating votes by district would retain the existing number of electors, while better representing the votes of more citizens. This would require legislation to prevent partisan bias during gerrymandering, defined by Francis in 2019 as changing district boundaries for political benefit, which currently is a flaw of the districting system. I would also make the selecting of electors and the casting of their votes private. They would not be known to their parties, but chosen from a pool of potential members. It could reduce the occurrence of faithless electors and the ability to manipulate electors unduly, while allowing them to retain their ability to choose a president independently if true need were to arise. We must reform the Electoral College if we're to reduce the impact of partisan influences, restoring faith and integrity to the process while strengthening the impact of voters in the future. In review, there are many flaws, such as voter disenfranchisement and partisan politics, that are negatively affecting our elections. Proportional representation and electoral independence are current strengths of the Electoral College, which protect the democratic process, safety, and security of our elections. Because of these strengths, I believe the Electoral College should be reformed, with protections aimed at reducing partisan politics, gerrymandering, and external influence of electors. I hope this speech has explained some of the pros and cons of the Electoral College, in the hopes that a better understanding of the system not only shows what is currently broken, but what we can retain or fix for the future of our elections. On our 18th birthdays, we qualify for two of the most important civic duties our country offers: military service and voting. Those who choose military service offer up their lives to protect our rights, most notably our right to vote. Their sacrifice is a call to action. We owe it to our service people and our country to not only vote, but to do our best to protect the sanctity of that vote. We follow in the footprints of giants, the forefathers who created our country from the philosophies and leaders of history. It's our turn to do the same, to build upon their teachings and ensure the survival of democracy for future generations. Thank you.